Hey. HYPEWORKS podcast episode 7 with myself, Alex, Jake, and our first ever special guest, Justin, an old friend. Nice to have you on, Justin. We're just talking. Me. Yeah, good to have you. So we're just saying, like, you're heading out on your travels soon, again.
Yeah, it's been a pretty busy summer of travel, I guess, and just getting off 25 days, give or take, in the last month or so. A couple weeks at home, and then I don't know, the travel coming up. Some of it's exciting, some of it's not as exciting. New York is one that I'm looking forward to, I guess, and then Maui is the week after, and then back to Germany, which now seems like a bit of a dread because there's not many flights that go direct from Vancouver in the wintertime, so I found that to be a bit interesting. But yeah, I guess it's good to kind of wrap up the year, and then by the start of December, hopefully it stops.
Yeah. So Jake, you know why Justin's going to Maui, right?
No idea, mate.
So
do enlighten us, Justin.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Chipset Summit for Qualcomm. So yeah, it was. I mean, a few years ago, it was a lot of fun. It used to be in December, so it'd be the way to wrap up the year and just relax a little bit, eat a lot. Alex, you're going there this year? Or?
I've been waiting for an invite to this like for years. Literally every year, I'm like, please God, Qualcomm, someone invite me. But
I got uninvited for one of the years, so
yeah. so Jake, Alan at Oppo, Alan Wu. So
I do.
Yes. So he went 1 year, and like I was basically penciled in to go, but at the end of the day, I didn't get to go. So like that was the closest I ever got to going. But yeah, it's the thing with that one is it feels like it's not really. There's not much to do, right? You just go there, and then they have a chip. There's whatever new chip they have, and then there's like a barbecue, and
there's like lectures that go around each day, and you have to spend like an hour and a half in this room and then an hour and a half in that room. But you're at like this resort, and everything's built to the room, and so just I guess ate a lot. Probably why I didn't get invited the year after, and then took a little bit of convincing again. But this year I'm looking forward to golfing and that kind of stuff. But that year they had one chip, and I think they had literally only one of them on site, and it fell out and a bird ate it. It fell out of the display case. I think Saf was like taking pictures with it, and it just like it dropped, and they never saw it again. So yeah, I don't know what's coming out this year.
There's a conspiracy in this.
Did you see Saf? He's got his own podcast now. He's doing like big interviews. He interviewed the UFC guy, Khabib. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that was his podcast. I thought it was like just like a guest episode.
I think he's basically it's like a joint venture. I think he's like he'll correct me here, but I think he's obviously getting paid to do it, but like it's partly his production. Like he's obviously the MC, he's hosting it. But it's pretty cool actually. I think he's out in the Middle East somewhere. I think he's doing it in like I don't know, was it Qatar or somewhere like that. Yeah.
I mean, Dubai looks like the place to go for a lot of creators right now. I think it was a Vietnam trip where most of the people that we met who like created online stuff, they were all living in Dubai in like this kind of bubble. And then they travel around and stuff, but at least half the year was spent in Dubai.
Yeah. We'll get to that then. Like that's the last topic. But just want to start with like so like we're from the UK, right? And you're from Canada. So let's just talk about like growing up in the UK and Canada. So Jake, like we share similar kind of upbringing. I think me and Jake, like, because we're from like quite small towns. I think we're all from quite small towns, relatively speaking. So I think we both share this like it's kind of crappy growing up in a small town. You want to get out and like see the world kind of thing. Hence why we're here.
Go on then, Alex. Who's going first?
You go first.
Oh no. I don't know what it was like growing up in Canada. I had never really thought too much about Canada growing up. I did know a lot about America. MTV was relatively new. People are going to be guessing my age, but I'm younger than I look. But yeah, no, I loved growing up. You know, we grew up in those like woodlands and all sorts of stuff, mate. I remember playing with my toy cars in the mud. That might seem disgusting by some people's standards these days.
Yeah. But no, I went to Vic like when I was like a kid. Like I must have been like 15 when I went to Vic, and all I remember is like the seaplane, and you've got the harbor, and it's like
it's still there. I mean, it probably still looks the same for the most part. There's a few things being built, but otherwise, I mean, if you look outside, it probably looks 90% the same.
Yeah. I have a question then. How's that impacted on your worldview today?
Makes me not want to be here, I'd say. The more I travel, the more I don't want to be here. So
where would you go, though?
I think Vancouver would be a good place. I'm heading there in a few hours, but I don't know. Vancouver, like growing up, you go there all the time. It's like where there's the best food. There's a ton of shopping. Growing up, there's like the science world. There's hockey. The Canucks are playing there. And concerts. It is like a main hub in Canada. Vancouver and Toronto, I feel like, are the places that everybody knows about. And then there's like obviously Calgary and stuff, which is, I've been there. I'd rather live in Victoria than Calgary, honestly. But the fact that Victoria's on an island is like that one thing that kind of sucks sometimes to travel out of. So I would say, like, I mean, because it's an online business, I don't really have to move anywhere. But staying here, all I do is work. I don't really leave the house. And so it works, like the system for that aspect works, but but in terms of actual like fun and like the place itself and the people that you hang out with, it is a really small circle here. I think there's a type of, the people here definitely like are more like, they stay here. It's a slower paced place overall, and not many people do the same thing in this industry. And so to get like that global vision or like inspiration, you kind of have to go to like the big city or travel the world.
Yeah, because you see all these like any field, it could be like YouTubers or business people, like everyone goes to the city, right? New York, Miami. Yeah. Like in our case, we went to Asia. Like people tend to get together in these big cities, and it is, like Jake, you're in Bangkok. Like when you meet all these interesting people when you're in a city, but then this double-edged sword, right? Because you get distracted, too many distractions.
But to be honest, there's still like a massive like nomad community in Chiang Mai, and big co-working spaces there. Relative to the size of the place, there is actually quite a lot of content creators and digital nomads in Chiang Mai, and increasingly so, by the way. Interesting topic of conversation, that since I've been here, the amount of Russians that live in this place that I live has perhaps doubled.
Yeah. I don't know. I always think, like, when I go back home to Inverness, like where I'm from, I get a lot of stuff done because there's just nothing else to do. It's like, it comes back to this focus,
It's good and bad. It's almost like Vic, I guess, a good place to come back to. Like you travel around, you learn a lot of things, and you take it back to your home base. But then after like 1 or 2 weeks of that, I think especially after this amount of travel this summer, it's sort of like I want to go somewhere again. And so I think the New York trip was one of those where there was an option to go to Toronto or to San Francisco for the briefing. And even though San Francisco is theoretically the closest, you feel like New York, you kind of see the most variety of things to learn from. And so I think that's what I noticed a lot. And like Singapore was also a very interesting one where like the way things are run there is a lot more efficient than how North America likes to do things. So I think every place has its own kind of community of it.
When you say learn, are you talking in from people through conversation?
I think I'd say like more so for just like the way, I guess, operations are run, the way people do things, the speed at which they do it, the mannerisms, that kind of thing. Because I don't know, I think I don't really talk to too many people, like locals and stuff, when we're going. I don't know, I just like hang out with my group. I'm a little bit shy, so but just like seeing how the systems are run and like how it's very civilized. Whereas I feel like North America, a lot of times it's a little bit more messy, and like you wonder why things take so long or why things are always broken and that kind of stuff. And you go to other places and see, and kind of even just like how the airport is run is a huge indication of how the whole country is run.
Yeah, good point.
It is a good point, but there probably are some inefficiencies in there. Obviously with a different system of control, there are other, like for example in Shenzhen, unbelievable place. I'm not sure you've ever been, but it's the most technologically advanced city in the world, I would probably argue. A lot of buildings, everything is new, lots of new construction, implementation of new technology like battery technology and taxis. But the regulation on these kind of building sites is like nothing you've ever seen before. But effectively, there's not much. So although things do progress very quickly, the potential, the risk behind it is crazy. I'm not saying that is the case in Singapore. I do imagine that Singapore is perhaps a little bit more regulated.
Yeah, even stuff like cars. Like nobody's allowed to have a car that I think was either 10 or 15 years old. Like the government will not insure it or like something like that, and so you have to sell it and export it out. And so stuff like that, there's like a crazy amount of control on like what you own or what you can own, type of thing. But just as a visitor, I was sort of like, well, it's like it's an interesting place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jake, you're going home for the first time in like, is it 4 years since you've been home?
No,
3 years?
About nearly three.
Yeah.
I've also done a hectic summer of traveling, so I'm quite glad to get down somewhere for 2 weeks, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to, we'll touch on it at the end. I'm going to Dubai in a couple of weeks. Are you doing Abu Dhabi, by the way?
I don't think so. As of now, because I think I have to be in Germany by the 22nd. But I think we were supposed to go to Brazil this week for F1, but it seems like that race might even be canceled or something like that. And then something else came up. Yeah, I think, I don't know, it would have been cool, I think, but the schedule would have been tight because it was straight from Brazil, Monday in Maui, Tuesday, I don't know if we have to be in Toronto yet. And then afterwards, I was joking about maybe going from Maui straight to Abu Dhabi. I don't know. Some friends wanted to go to Japan.
That's crazy.
We've been meaning to go back to Japan since that trip, right? That 4-day trip.
Yeah. So basically, Jake, like one of the Oppo trips we did to Japan for a week, and it was really good actually. So the guy that organized it was Jason. Do you remember Jason? We talked about this before. A bit of a car crash. But it was fun. Tim went on that trip, by the way. Tim came to Japan.
I have heard the fallout of that trip.
I mean, it was chaotic, but it was a pretty fun 4 days. And I think I also landed a day late because I forgot that there was a 13-hour time change. I was like so stupid. But yeah, I remember first day we got off, it was like 10 hours spent in the car, and then we go to Mount Fuji and there's nothing to see. It was completely fogged out. And then, but then I think I think it was the fourth day, Carl and everyone decided to go to Kyoto. So we went a few of us went to Kyoto for 1 day and then came back. But I mean, it was packed. Like we got to see a bit of everything in that 4 days, but just like for years I've been wanting to go back, and they finally opened, I think, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. No, that was awesome. Yeah, I haven't been back to Japan since then either. So, have you been to Japan, Jake?
Never.
Nah, you need to get over there.
Never.
It's pretty cool.
No. I go to the rough and ready places.
Have you been to Vietnam?
I love Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh, shout out, my favorite city in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Really.
Vietnam was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It's totally underrated, but I hope it remains that way for a long time. A little bit. Obviously, I wish them growth and prosperity at the same time, but I kind of do want to keep it for myself.
We'll come back to the travel thing, but I just want to say, Justin, like you went back to UBC this week to do like a talk to your old class. I'm not sure it was your old professor, but like me and Jake, we talk a lot about
it's UVic,
yeah, we talk a lot about school and the value of like school education. Like, what do you think about it now? Like, now you're kind of looking back.
I mean, I'm still glad I left. They're teaching a social media class, but the prof doesn't know social media, and he admits that at all. He's just teaching it for his own learning. So, but the simulations are all like computer-based simulations for the projects. So everything is like by the books and that sort of stuff. So it's like it's still fundamentally flawed for the most part. But
so paint a picture. Like the takeaway. These guys. Sorry, go on. Finish.
Yeah, these guys. It was fourth year elective.
Yeah.
So they're on the final year of their business degree. And it sort of showed that I guess anybody could teach a class like that.
Mm-hmm. So that's the same course. That's the course you did, right? Business. It was a business degree.
Yeah, business program. That class didn't specifically exist when I was in the program, but Yeah, business program, and these are fourth year students, which I didn't make it quite to fourth year. I think I was like end of third year. I may have gone to the first week of fourth year, but I just felt like it was more and more useless as it went on.
Yeah.
So what we saying, that course at Hustlers University?
You're better off with an online course or watching a lot of TikTok or YouTube.
I did Justin's course, Jake. We'll put a link to Justin's course in the description. But
is there affiliates?
Yeah, no, there's no affiliates.
We're working on that.
But no, I was just gonna say, like in the UK, like we grew up very tracked. So like our university is like, it's very like exactly what you said. It's like very systematic, and we have to go to university to get a job. Like that's the whole kind of UK perspective. Yeah. I think now it's probably changed.
A lot
now.
less vocational than a North American degree typically. I'm not sure about the Canadian education system because it's part of the British Commonwealth, but the American education system is very vocational. Like it, for example, I guess the main difference would be theirs is that you could walk into a job and do the job, but the British education system is a lot more philosophical. Like it will teach you about like research methodology to get you to question as opposed to do.
Yeah. But again, the value of educational, like, you know, it hasn't hindered you at all, right? Like, so when you're telling these kids, like, what was your advice for these kids? Because obviously they're finishing their degree, right? You're not going to say drop out now, you know, and just like fuck off.
Yeah, I was sort of, I think the takeaway from it was just like the people who will actually do well and like not just, I mean, some people will go corporate. A lot of people realize they don't like corporate, but the way you actually do well is combine intuition with theory, because all they've been taught is theory for the last 4 years. And if you're really good at theory and you get good grades, I found that it actually could make you a worse business person because you're too reliant on theory. Whereas if you'd go with like the philosophical method and start to question things and how they're done, you're not going to do very well on the test. And that's kind of why, like, I think this prof specifically taught marketing when I was in third year. And I think I got like 60% on that exam just because like it was a bubble sheet with 5 different options on there. But if you question anything within the theory, just from real world experience, because I had real world experience while I was in school already, you end up doing worse. And so I think that was kind of the takeaway for the students that like, I mean, I think it's a trend that I have noticed. Like the best students don't necessarily, in the business world at least, unless you're going into like finance and stuff, that can definitely help a lot. But specifically in like this university or like Canadian university, I guess the way they teach it, it is relatively outdated.
I think though that it's also because it's in a digital space, which you could argue is one of the most like quickly evolving and dynamic. So, you know, it is good to have that underpinning, but I totally agree with what you say. I think for a long time in my career, I was very keen to utilize some of the theory and knowledge of which I'd learned in a textbook. And although, yes, it does fit, it doesn't teach you the nuance that might be existing on top of that or how the market has progressed and changed. I think, for example, influencer marketing in itself, just as a domain of digital marketing, is a space that's progressed quite a lot within a short amount of time, such as the way that influencers are monetizing their content. Even just this week, Instagram actually released new features as well to be rolled out so that people can send like digital tokens. People can have subscription accounts. So, you know, if we had run that social media course last year, it would actually be in effect, part of it might be outdated today. Yeah,
absolutely. I think what was interesting was like marketing class, even in third year, didn't talk about social media at all. It was maybe like a quarter of a slide on a 36 like chapter course. And so I think, I don't know. I think business school specifically, it depends what type of field you're looking to go into. But if it's like anything to do with like e-com or social media or marketing, it's one of those where you kind of you should just jump in the industry or try to.
I did 4-year degree, business degree, and I literally didn't learn a single thing about business until I actually started my first job.
Yeah.
Like, just the same, right? Yeah.
I guess that's the appeal of Hustlers University. We should
or
get
any
affiliates for that as well.
Or any online education.
Well,
right?
That's why online courses are booming. I guess people are very thirsty for knowledge, and you know the traditional means of education is somewhat well, as Justin has already alluded to, a little bit outdated by the time you actually come to read about it. And even then, you're not learning the nuance about the actual real world effect of it. Out in the fields is a completely different experience.
Justin, what's your goal with your like online course? Like, do you want to grow it to be like really big, or is this like a side hustle, or like what is it?
I think like the effort that we put into making it, we did try to make it as best as we could. I know a lot of times like my internet marketing friends will say like the product itself doesn't really matter. It's about how you market it and how you do like the input and outputs of like ad buying and stuff. And I have friends in the course spaces that are in industries where like they wouldn't tell anybody what kind of courses they were selling. It's like slightly embarrassing, but they make a lot of money off of it. But our approach was sort of like, we should do the reverse of that. We should make the best course possible. Don't really understand much about like how like ad buying and that type of marketing works. But that can be figured out, or it can be outsourced, or you hire like the right agency to run it. I think YouTube and whatever we're doing like on a day-to-day basis will always be the biggest focus, but the course is one of those things where like we spent maybe 6 or 7 days filming it. And although the editing process and PDF and back and forth may have taken almost a year after all that like back and forth and revisions and all that, it is a division that I think will be the biggest potential for passive income stream of the company. So like I don't have much time to work on it, honestly, in terms of talking to the ad team and all that. I know they're working on like new website. They're tracking like where the clicking and all that stuff is, and then figuring out the ad buying once that's been utilized. I think it does still have a lot of potential, but right now it has been very hard to, I guess, segment the time for it. But we're very happy with the product. So I think that was like the core focus in the beginning.
Yeah. Jake, do you watch any of these? Do you subscribe to any of these online courses?
Again, I think like, no, to be honest.
No.
Again, it's not like I'm saying that I don't need it. It's just, I have my own ways of doing it. You know, the thing is with advertising, it's like a chessboard. The chessboard is Facebook in a way. They define the rules of the game, but the strategies that you play on top of that chessboard are more or less your own. I'm not saying that there aren't proven strategies. Of course there are, as there are with every game. But it's then the level of nuance that you can layer on top of that. You know, for example, can I create a certain type of ad format that is particularly engaging for a particular market segment? You know, you can get really granular with the amount of detail that you put into your advertising plan, or you can kind of try and keep it top level, let the algorithm do the work. It ultimately depends on the type of product that you're trying to sell as well at the same time. But again, you know, here's me. I'll say one thing. I'd worked in corporations really forever. I mean, I'd always had like little side businesses. When I was 21, started my first business in running nightclubs, actually, in techno nights. Of course, we were using Facebook ads and Facebook events, and we were doing all your guerrilla marketing tactics then. You know, so that was like 2012. But fast forward 10 years, I'm still on the Facebook ecosystem. But it was much easier to spend money inside a corporation because I could make a mistake. I had $1 million to play with. Very easy to learn very quickly when you've got $1 million. But when you've got, you know, $10,000 and you need to make money, it's very hard to test and iterate.
I think that's the thing with your course, Justin, like, and other courses. I've watched a few of these. Like, I watched Casey's one and I watched a few other ones. It's like, I want to hear your mistakes. Like, that's the value for me. I don't want to hear like what's been done and tried and tested. I just want to hear like what mistakes you made, because then that helps me, you know, adjust my perspective. So no, I think it was really good. I watched the whole thing to the end. I'm not just saying that. I actually watched the whole thing.
The mistake I think was signing with an MCN back when I was like 13, 14, but I think everyone knows not to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Signing with like full screen.
Yeah.
Wow, what? Tell me more about that. I don't know about that.
That was just like when you're a kid, you see all these like big agencies, whether it was like full screen, I think Studio 71 and all that kind of stuff. And you want to be like associated with an agency, but the agency just takes 40% of your revenue. Sorry, I'll start that again. I just gotta let the trades in. MCN, right? Like, yeah, you're having to give up your revenue to this random agency, and then they promise you a lot of things, right? But then they promise you a ton of things, but especially when you're like a channel with a couple thousand subscribers or less, they have a really bad revenue split. It's like, I think I gave up 40%. And when you're a kid, you sign the contract just to say you're associated with them, and you don't really read the fine print. And so for 2 or 3 years, like obviously 40% in the beginning was not very significant. It was like a couple dollars, but then you have a few videos hit 3 million views, 2 million views, and you're giving up thousands of dollars, and you continue to sign these contracts because you're already kind of set up with them and didn't really know how to make a separate AdSense account. And at that point, you're giving up, you're continuing to give up that 40%, and until you actually realize it, you've already given them all that money, and I think in that whole 5 years, it was like maybe one brand deal, and it was like $200.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
How did you get out of that? Did you just walk away, or like did you have a big fight, or how did you get out of it?
Yeah, just like didn't sign the contract, and they try to offer you money to stay, like a couple thousand. And be like, hey, we'll like give you a better revenue split and this and that. But at the end of the day, they're not really providing you, any additional value. And so aside from getting into like a VidCon event or something like that, or like their YouTube party, it wasn't. I don't know. I ended up just going with AdSense and setting it up that way. But I think that's probably the biggest early mistakes. And I think the way that could be applied today is if anyone who's just starting out should definitely read the fine print. I don't think the MCN issue is as prominent as before, just because like those have somewhat I think they faded out quite a bit. But yeah, generally reading the fine print and kind of talking to other creators whenever you're given an offer, and just knowing the industry and where that market price is at can kind of benefit everybody.
I think those kind of networks are still quite prevalent in certain places in Asia.
Yeah, I think they still exist for sure. Yeah, they're still out there, but I feel like I'd hope nobody, like not as many people are signing up to them as before, because I feel like back then everybody did.
That's a message to the young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a good segue, because like the next topic I want to talk about is just like the ups and downs of like being like yourself, like someone that's like being a KOL influencer. Because we work, myself and Jake, like we work with you guys, so we see it from the outside. Like we see like things that go wrong in terms of like the business side, but we don't see like the personal side. So like, I don't know, maybe like talk a little bit about, because obviously you talked about your travel schedule there. It's pretty mental. Like you're just traveling around a lot, and it takes its toll. Just traveling a lot.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to what you want. I would say my lifestyle is really blended with the business, and it has been for so many years. And part of that was just because I started it out when I was 12. And so you either go to school or you're working on this. And if you wanted to kind of make it into something full time, or at the time is just trying to get a couple thousand followers, like all the free time I did have had to be spent on this. And then going through university, you're also trying to fight through both sides of the schedule. And then after going full time, it was sort of like, well, like now I can do this full time. I can choose what I want to do in the given day, but then travel gets put into the mix. And the other aspect beyond travel is that I feel like we're also covering a few different industries. Like consumer tech is like the one that we probably still benefit from the most, but it's the one that I might have the least interest in out of the niches, because we also do like real estate and then travel stuff. And so pretty much trying to cover three industries is like your lifestyle has to be adapted in a way that you like. And I think I do like traveling, but it is also one of those things where it's like, at what point is it a little bit too much and you don't really have a home routine? Because at the end of the day, I think at the core, I do like to have a home base, and I like to come back and do the same stuff all the time. But I don't know, like right now, I think traveling is a good way to kind of just keep things exciting. Every other week there's something new, and I'm sure you guys know in your industry, a lot of the stuff's so last minute. I was just laughing because like Alex, I feel like I do remember when you messaged me about Italy. It was like the first international trip that I think I was ever invited to. It was just a Twitter DM at like 3 a.m. I just happened to be up for some reason, and I'm pretty sure the flight was leaving like pretty quickly after, and it was like a 24-hour commute to get to Italy, because there was like 4 different flights, and my baggage didn't make it, and so you had to wait for the next flight to go there. And then I remember you guys had like a dinner on the first day, and I went to the lobby to meet you guys, but I just went right back to the elevator and went to sleep because I couldn't stay awake. Yeah,
I mean, so we inside the companies, like we have different stress. Like we have like we have a lot of, you know, Jake, as we know,
Yeah,
like
we're
we've
like,
got.
where's Justin? Is he gonna get here?
No. It's more like ours is like it's more structured. Like our stress is quite structured, whereas I think your stress is because like we have a big team of people, right? So we got to say, okay, this person's doing that, this person's doing that. It's not all on you. Whereas I think with you and other like creators and media, like it's the stress is all on you, right? Because there's no one else to, you know. Of course, you've got your team now, which you didn't have back then. You didn't have Trevor, you didn't have all the other guys.
Yeah,
like back then it was just you back then, right, by yourself. So that was the pressure. That was the pressure back then.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories. So there was that Italy one, and then Japan. I remember was that one. I think we had quite a bit of notice on, but there was a ton of back and forth during that whole process. And then even in Barcelona, that was just this year. So yeah, it was fun to catch up. But there was another funny dinner situation where I guess at that point I probably already had COVID and didn't know yet. But there's a dinner reservation booked, and it was for like 15 people. And the restaurant has 2 locations with the exact same name. And Trevor and I had gone to the wrong one. And so we avoided having dinner with everyone. And then I had dinner with Alex the day after. And the day after that, I found out I had COVID and was stuck in Barcelona for up to 10 days because Canada had their own set of rules. And so, yeah, that was like the first trip back, I think, in 2-3 years.
We all got COVID that weekend, pretty much.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I remember Japan, like, going back to, like, a lot of guys, like, they have to do their, like, you know, Jake knows as well, like, you have to do your own filming, your editing, your scripting, you're doing deals, like, especially when you're starting out, you've got to do everything yourself. You've got to wear a lot of hats, right? Yeah. And that changes as you get bigger because you get a team of people that you can spread out all the workload.
Yeah, and I think that's important to do, though. In the beginning, that teaches you the most about your business and how you want to run it for as long as possible. But then that, like, at what point do you let go of some of it? I think is where people find just as much difficulty as trying to handle it all themselves. And even nowadays, there's probably a lot of aspects of the business that I would like to hand off, and I should be able to hand off, but I haven't really been able to figure out how to hand it off.
Like editing.
So, I mean, editing I've handed off for like the last 2 years. Filming I have handed off, obviously, like on a full-time basis, but I still feel like I don't know how to describe what I want sometimes. And then like the business operations stuff, I just like, I don't know. I don't even know the password to get into QuickBooks. So it's,
I just signed up Jake to 1Password. So we just got 1Password. So we're starting to like,
that took us a while too. Yeah, LastPass, 1Password. That's all very important. I think, especially on social media, there's always people trying to hack the accounts, like more than like all the time, even the most random accounts. And so those systems and integrating software with a small team, especially, is difficult because at the end of the day, it relies on like myself to use it, for everyone else to also want to use it. But I use Apple Notes, and I used Apple Notes when it was just you don't really have to have a system when you're running the business by yourself, because as long as it works for you, it doesn't have to work for anybody else. Right. Which is like kind of the scrappy entrepreneur, internet guy kind of mentality, which teaches you a lot over the years. But in the long run, there definitely needs to be like some sort of structure, organization, and a systems of how to do things. And I feel like that's something we're still trying to learn.
I think some of it is come down to trust, though. Can I trust this person to, you know, like they may not necessarily need your process, but do they have the ability to build their own? That's part of it. Yeah, it's also one of those things where if somebody sets up a system, I may not necessarily want to use it. And if I don't use it, nobody else will use it. And so implementation, like Slack is something that I hate using. Like we've never used it before. We maybe tried it for a week or so. But when a team's under 5 people in-house, you don't really need Slack. You just message each other on iMessage and that kind of thing. Or like in Gio's case, Twitter DMs. And we just switched to WhatsApp after like 6 years. Don't know why we're using Twitter this whole time, but yeah, it's like Notion is one that everybody on the team has bought into. And as soon as we started using it, it was like, I think this is going to work. And Notion's essentially become like that central hub.
Yeah, we're on WeChat for obvious reasons. Like we deal with a lot of Chinese clients, just all WeChat, and they refuse to use Google. Like and they insist on using their own Chinese apps, like their own. You know, Jake, this is a pinpoint. This is annoying for you, Jake, right?
It's not really annoying for me. I mean, I have my own. You know, we have our own things, you know, we have like different parts of software. I think our issue is like an integration issue as well. So like, does all of our software sync up with all of our other software? The other thing about all the tools that have API connectors on them, it's annoying because you have to continually reconnect them on certain tools. And I think that those are the kind of user experiences that really define what kind of tools get adopted within your ecosystem.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's weird because like everybody uses iMessage that I know, but if somebody's on Android on the team, like in-house, I don't know how that would work. But like out here, we don't really use WeChat at all. Like I know on some, even using WhatsApp was almost foreign to me for a while.
Yeah. But you mentioned Gio. So Jake, Gio is he's a designer. He does like really good. I think he's working for like Nokia.
Yeah, Nokia.
He told me he's working at Nokia.
Full time.
But he's for years he's been a freelancer. And I just wanted to talk about like freelancers because we use freelancers as well. And I think with companies, there's a rush to get a lot of people in-house, right? But I think nowadays, like freelancers are it's a pretty powerful model, like to outsource stuff. Like we do a lot of that.
I think it depends on the context though. In places where you need people to learn your own system and routine, you have to bring them in-house. But I do think that there is a case for decentralization. But the problem is like, let's say, you know, as is often the case in industries like software is, you get somebody in to do like almost like a turnkey software project. And then it's like, unless you've got a non-compete agreement or an exclusivity deal, then you're either going to end up having competitors or having to buy that company that effectively made you software that made you rich.
But Gio was based in a very small place in Italy. And he's not going to move to Vic, right? He's not going to move to Vancouver even. He's happy in Italy.
I think he was offered to move. He was offered to move to New York, and I think with Marquez, and I think he said he would rather live in Canada than out there. And I mean, we mentioned it to him, but like, I don't think he was ever gonna. He wasn't gonna move. No. But he lives in Germany, I think. He moved
Germany
over there,
now. Yeah.
So,
but that's the thing. Like a guy like that, he likes Europe, right? So, and he's really good at what he does. So obviously you still want to use him. You're not going to ask him to move to the Canada or the US, right?
And really, like in-house, it wouldn't really make much sense either. It's one of those things where he knows our systems now, where the process of the thumbnail is like, here's a thumbnail. I need it by this day. He knows usually what I want to do, and occasionally I'll have notes in there. And like for 6 years, it's kind of worked like that. So I feel like he doesn't do as much freelance anymore. He's gotten rid of most of the thumbnail clients just because of the full-time thing, but because we've built that loyalty over the last 6 years. He still does it for us.
Yeah. What do you think of Marquez? You mentioned Marquez, like he's taking a lot more in-house now. He's got like a big team. I used to work with David Immel, the writer. Yeah. He's really smart. Do you think that's a good strategy, like what he's doing, like building out a big office and all that? Do you want to do that one day, have a big office and like a big studio and all that stuff? Is that in the plans?
I think it really depends on the person. I feel like I don't know Marquez like that well. He's relatively quiet. Like I see him at events and stuff, but it seems like they have a pretty good system run. Like Vin used to work for me, and he's worked for Marquez for probably 7 years now. Like he went from me to Marquez, and he's stayed there since. And I believe he's like probably him, Brandon, and I think that's like their core team, and Andrew. That's kind of been like the equivalent of like Trevor and Damien and I as a core team. And so it seems like they've run it pretty well, but it seems like he also has a pretty good level of work-life balance where he has like his Frisbee side of things. They work regular hours. Whereas I feel like our team is a lot more of a scrappy setup. Like we travel a ton by choice. And it's a lot of a younger team as well, I believe. I mean, they're like late 20s, but like our team kind of started while I was like 21 or 22. And so it's still run a lot like that. We did just get a new office, which adds about 4,000 square feet, but it's mainly for filming. And I don't think the intention is to build the team that much larger in-house. We're probably going to add 2 more people, but I don't know. I personally I always feel like I have to keep everybody extremely occupied. Just because I like to work at a very quick speed, whereas usually when you delegate a task, people have like they work on that for quite a while. I end up just like either overloading or not knowing if somebody has enough stuff to do. And I feel like instead of actually working on stuff that I need to do, it's all spent on the managerial side of things. So I don't love answering questions from like all directions as well throughout the day, because then I can't really focus on stuff. So I think keeping a small team and then having the rest contracted and building a systems based on that and having that balance has been the formula. But it's more so just down to who.
I've got questions. I love this kind of discussion. I love talking about management. It's one of my favorite topics. But I was going to ask, what Alex wants to know your mistakes, but I want to know what your new rituals are. So what kind of mistakes develop new rituals and routines and systems of management within your little organization? Obviously, very quickly expanding organization by the sounds of it, but what are the fundamental cultural parameters of your business, and how do you think that differentiates you within the YouTuber community? Yeah,
I think in the YouTuber community, a lot of people are surprised that there's that many people on the team. But I also feel like I'm still working all day, and that there could be more members of it. It's interesting because I think so originally I started out by hiring a videographer first, and that's like a very creative role and a creative personality. Whereas I feel like I was more of like a business personality first before the artistic side. And so there was a lot of like, I tried to hand off too much of the managerial to the only other employee in the company. And eventually there's like burnout involved and like that type of thing. And so after the videographer left, I then hired a managerial role, operations management, who's Trevor from my class. And for the last 3 years, we've been building that system as like a company in operations. And then we added the creative. And so there's another layer. And like Damien is very similar actually to Nick in terms of personality aspects.
Yeah, he is.
Because there's like that managerial guy in the middle, Trevor, who's like operations and like finance and like the organized on time guy. He kind of bridges that gap, because traditionally like the creatives that I've hired are relatively irresponsible. Like they're really good at filming and they're really good at editing, but they like running a business on their own, I don't think is possible just because of like, they're always thinking about the creative stuff. And so
Jake, we know someone like
systems, I think was something that helped out a lot. And I think I've also noticed within our company, it's everybody does have to wear a lot of hats. You have to be very involved in the process, and it can be rewarding, but it has to be the right person, just because it can also be very overwhelming. And so I think what I've noticed, especially with each member of the team, is that everybody's on their own system. There are some people who are like strictly 9 to 5. I don't talk to them after hours, even though like we're all in the same class and the same age. They have their own like kind of separate life. Whereas Trevor is like kind of he's contracted on salary, and so he's able to come in and whenever and communicate after hours. And then there's Damien, who has to travel with me for 15 days in a row and wants to travel even more actually. And so everybody's kind of on their own different system. And I mean, it's all still a work in progress over time. In terms of the contracted workers, like these are all people that I've known for so many years now. We grew up with them on the internet. Our editor, Tyga, and Eric, they used to make videos like back when they were 14 or 15, and I must have been like maybe 2 or 3 years older. And so now they've all kind of gone off and done their own freelance stuff. Maybe one of them is like in school and that kind of thing. And so Eric writes a newsletter. Tyga edits the videos 2 days a week. Geo, like from the Twitter community, I feel like everybody kind of met each other through Twitter, which is weird because nowadays I feel like Twitter doesn't really have as much of that community aspect in the tech space. Like people still interact, but it wasn't at the level of what it used to be. Yeah. So everyone I think I've noticed we've hired off of mutual referrals. I think that's been the key for both in-house and like just so the people within the company understand how things work and they can explain it to someone that they think is a good fit.
And the referrals came mostly offline or online?
Bit of both. The in-house referrals were people that I met at school and then ended up hiring. And then from there's like a mutual friend who knows a videographer, and then a videographer knows somebody who could be a good executive assistant. And so kind of that layer of, because the core team is so small, the referrals are ones that we definitely trust. But the online ones, I think, everyone just sort of knew each other, but they'd be like, oh, I think this guy is doing this now. You should talk to him. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I know him from before. That sort of thing. Okay.
And from the 12-year-old days, from when you started to now, how's the process been in terms of the speed of scale? Like how quickly are you growing?
So it's like on the business side of things, I think it's grown better than I could have expected. Because when you're 12, you're sort of like, I hope this makes enough to let me buy like an iPod or something. But obviously, the industry has also progressed throughout the years, and I think everybody would be surprised by where this industry has come and still how far it needs to go. In terms of processes, I feel like we always try to circle back into how did I run it when I was 12 years old? Because there's still a lot of that like hobby element to it versus trying to be super corporate. Because I'm like, corporate can scale the business. You could probably make more money if you hire more people, but the amount of responsibility and I guess, the likelihood to collapse and fail is also a lot higher when you involve many more people and many more scales of business. So I think trying to focus on the core few things and keeping it like this has kind of been the intention, and ensuring that I always look back at like, how did I run it back then, and how can I still apply that to nowadays. But I think right now we're in a phase where it's like, we do need more organization, just because the amount of travel and how on the fly it is, and making sure everybody on the team is like involved and stays connected to it. So the studio space is one where it's like, if I land and I want to film right away, it's already got like a systems going. Whereas like right now the stuff's like scattered between my house, our office, but like, it's not huge. It's like 1,100 square feet and it looks more like a house, but building that team out in Victoria and being able to kind of, I guess, understand the operations side and all that better is my goal in the few weeks that we have here.
So what's your team size now in total?
So it's Trevor, who's general manager, so operations and finance. Damien's the videographer who has to pretty much come in he does a bit of editing as well, but he travels along. And then Savannah, she's like in PR, so LinkedIn reach outs, trying to explore new opportunities outside of like the tech space specifically. There's also like the management team, which is like the Bottle Rocket side. And then on top of that, there's Taiga, who does editing, Thomas, who also does editing, who he worked with Sam Elkins before, Alex, from Japan. So they're both based in LA. Taiga edits 2 days a week, no matter what. Thomas, he is kind of on the fly depending on when he's available. And then Gio's a graphic designer. And then there's also, we're trying to onboard somebody who can do short form and like kind of the graphics side of things. So Matt Urban, he's the guy he has like, I think 100,000 followers on Instagram. He's going to be trying to do some short form content. And then on top of that, Eric is in charge of writing newsletters. So that's like the contracted side of things. I think so that'd be 4 or 5 uncontracted. And then in-house, we're at 3 right now. And then that's probably going to grow to 4 soon.
Wow. Lovely. Yeah. I was going to say, what's next? If we let's do a shout out for the next role.
We will switch tracks, Jake, because I want to talk about Kinsvale. So Justin, I'm not sure you're aware, Jake, but Justin, he's part owner of a clothing brand that was called Dangerfield, and I remember because you were wearing the Dangerfield hoodie to one of the events we had. I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
So basically, the brand was Dangerfield, and it's a streetwear brand, and now it's Kinsvale. So I just want to talk like a little bit about like the state, like what's happening with that, and then some of the kind of I don't know, brands. I think we're very interested in brands. So
yeah, it's I mean, the store is still open. I was supposed to meet up with my business partner today, but I don't know, just got some editing to do and stuff. So. It's one of those industries where it was a good experiment and it was very low risk to buy into it. But like, it's not an industry that I want to be in. The margins are not good. All the money goes right back into it. There's so much overhead involved. Inventory has to be paid for first. You have to predict stock. There's size and color variabilities that, like, I think from going into this business, it's been fun to run at times, but it wore off really quickly. And I think that's like being in the advertising and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. The margins are extremely good. Yeah. You can't really compare it to like food and clothing, where it's like very cash flow reliant, which I guess most businesses are, but I just wasn't really used to that. So it runs itself. And it's like, it's profitable in quotation marks because all the money has to go back into it. Yeah. Nobody's ever going to really get a dividend out of it because it hasn't scaled, but having that retail store is cool. And so yeah, I haven't really like wore it that much or haven't talked about it that much just because it's sort of just running on autopilot, and it's a project that we've sort of had on the sideline, and the business owner runs pretty much all the daily operations of that.
Yeah, it's tough. Oh. Jake knows this. Jake had a.
I've had a venture into e-commerce. Yeah. And pretty much the same story, to be honest with you. I still keep it there. It still teaches me things. You know, I keep one foot in the space to have an understanding in the space. You know, the back end of these platforms, whether it be on like WooCommerce, Shopify. They change how you integrate certain aspects into advertising systems, like whether you do it via code or whether you do it through like an automated API. These things are changing all the time. You really need to understand them. I don't think you can be a good advertiser unless you have that first-hand experience of actually doing it yourself. Aforementioned, I ran advertising with $10,000. It was a lot harder than with $1 million. And it's those kind of like experiences that I think really contribute to your understanding of those spaces. But I think I also agree with you. Stick on the advertising side. It's much easier to work in the kind of 2B space than it is to make smaller margins in very competitive, saturated markets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite like brands right now? Like other brands, clothing, cars.
Kanye West.
You were in Germany with Mercedes. How was that? Like the overall experience?
Germany's like Mercedes is doing some good stuff. I mean, getting to meet the engineers and stuff. These guys have been working on it for like 30 years. They just get a kick out of every single thing they get to do with the car, which is interesting. Like the amount of passion behind some of these employees who have been working on this is just something that like I don't see very often. And so I'm trying to think. I don't know. I never have it on the top of my head. It's funny. I'd say Four Seasons actually is a company that, after seeing what they're working on, it really much aligns with like how I would want to grow that kind of company. Where it's like it's a hotel chain, but they just went through a rebrand a couple of years ago to appeal to a younger audience. But then they're now doing like the experiences thing, which they say they don't really make much money on, and I kind of believe them just by how like over the top it was. But it expands the brand. It shows people like this hotel. It shows them what they're capable of. It shows them their hospitality capabilities, which like now looking at all like how they set that up, I'm like, geez, like if they could, if I ever get married, they should kind of set up the wedding because it was so well done. But then they also have like that private jet experience that they also do around the world. And they take you to like, Antarctica, go through all of South America, Central America, all that kind of stuff. And then they also do like Asia and Europe and all that. But that's another example of them expanding their brand. And that has all led into their recent expansion into announcing their cruise, which is going to be in 2025. So it seems like these companies are now realizing that instead of being like just a hospitality company, to stand out, you need to be an experience company.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely someone who, if I stay at one hotel and I really like it and I really like that experience, and I go and stay at another one in another country, and I also like that experience, I definitely stick to the same level of consistency in as many places as possible. And I think they've really been able to try to do that by launching these experiences.
Yeah. Do you think like people are getting bored of like labels now? Do you think, like you say, experiences? People want experiences. They don't just want a label. Like, do you think that's the kind of...
Yeah, I'd say so, for sure. With like the events that they host, electric car companies are definitely trying to get a lot more involved in like art and the whole music side of things, which we've noticed a lot of, just by involving different collaborations. And so it's weird, like the next era of electric cars is very much a new approach to marketing as well as technology. And whether it's a newcomer or a company that's been around for a while, it's been interesting to see how each company has done it. Like VinFast, for example, making a completely new entry. Their approach was over the top, but Mercedes at the same time ties very much back into their heritage while trying to implement modern day technology and like artists and trying to be the cutting edge with like Dolby audio and all that. So, I think trying to be an experience company and a content company is how these companies can separate themselves.
I think tech's been boring for a while, right? We've all said this, like tech's been boring. And tech needs to learn more maybe from like the Airbnbs and like the Four Seasons. It needs to be more experiential, like for me.
Well, I mean, a lot of tech companies do host trips that are very similar to like what the Four Seasons experience was like. So it's I mean, that's good for us in the industry because these companies are throwing crazy experience just to get people to want to go. Yeah. Maui is like the perfect example of that. Like, I'm not really interested in the chipset whatsoever, but I mean, nobody else does an event in Maui every year. So
yeah. What's your thoughts, Jake, on brands at the moment? Like, what's your favorite brands? I know you're a Gentle Monster guy.
You know, these days I'm moving to like niche handmade stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like things that stand out to me. That's what I like. So I don't know. I think with the branding, as we move into these markets, maybe I don't think of it in terms of experience. I think of it in terms of service more than experience.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just my philosophy.
But yeah, go on.
No, it's just that, you know, I look at this as a service. I'd rather buy something unique than something that I think is trendy, but the values have to align with me. And I'm very particular about the value in service. Every product has an embedded service characteristic.
Yeah.
And without that, you know, the service is an exchange of ideas, an exchange of values between me and the touch point of that business.
I went to Rimowa with Oppo. I went to Paris with Oppo. I had a Rimowa suitcase, and I was at Charles de Gaulle Airport, and you know the escalators going downstairs. Yeah. So I'm on the escalator. I've got the suitcase in one hand. I've got the phone in the other. I'm looking at my messages. I lift my hand off the suitcase. Suitcase goes flying down the escalator. Smash. Clothes everywhere. Suitcase is broken in a million pieces. Duct tape it back together. I go downtown to Paris. I walk into the Bon Marche department store. I didn't even know this was possible. Went to the Rimowa store. I said, my suitcase is broken. Can I buy a new one? Like, what have you got? And the guy said, 1 minute, sir. He came out. He took my suitcase. He said, he gave me a little white card with Rimowa, and it said, please come back at like 2:00. Came back, brand new case, free of charge, lifetime warranty. And that just stuck with me. Like, that's amazing. Like, you can just
I didn't know they did that. I still have a messed up one, actually.
You have, yeah?
When you were buying the case, did you know there was a warranty?
It cost 500 euros, Jake, for the case. It's expensive as hell. And I didn't know. I honestly didn't know it was lifetime warranty. It's crazy. Yeah. But I feel like that's really important now. Like, that kind of surprise and that, like, the care that like the people take. You know?
Embedded service.
Yeah. I mean, that's
like what Apple used to do.
Right.
No questions asked replacement program, and now they plug it in to run like a 300-point diagnostic test and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, that separates. I think that separates like the really top brands from everyone else, like that magical service. But you were with Ferrari, right, as well? Was it Ferrari or Maserati?
It was not like directly with Ferrari, but it was an events company that kind of had a bit of an affiliation with Ferrari, I guess, because they did have like a new car that was out there on display. But yeah, it was. I mean, they, like the little details. It's like you expect it to be good because everybody on that trip paid $50,000, and we just kind of got like slid into it. And so you knew it'd be good, but like the little details were definitely there. Like how they, as you come through the tunnel to go into Florence, the police were already waiting there, and they see the convoy, and so they block off all the traffic leading into the city. And that's like one of those things where it's like, I think people would have still enjoyed it a lot without that like police escort through the city. But it was like a detail that I guess nobody expected, especially for like a private event like that. And then like the dinners obviously were like the way they set it up was just like way over the top. And so I think everyone on that trip would go on it again. From what it sounded like.
The other one I was going to ask you about was Singapore Airlines. How was that?
Yeah,
it was good.
That one was crazy. Yeah, it was like it was kind of overlapping Italy. So I missed 2 days of Italy, and we missed the Monaco yacht launch for Four Seasons to go to Singapore. But the Formula One Grand Prix is like, it's that day. You can't switch it. And the flight experience was really cool. I think the weirdest thing about both these trips is that the brands didn't really ask for much. Like they didn't ask for YouTube, just said post some stuff on Instagram on your iPhone. But I found that like kind of weird because it was like they booked 2 flights for 2 people, hotel and everything covered, race tickets, but there wasn't any itinerary. It was sort of just like kind of do what you want. So it was it was a good trip, back to back. And so we're working on those videos. They're going to come out in the next couple weeks. I think Damien's cutting them right now. So it's I guess I feel like we had to go somewhere after that, so it was a bit of a blur. But I think Singapore is definitely a place that I want to go back to this year. And I know like they talked about doing like the A380 out of New York, where it's a 24-hour flight and that type of thing. So hopefully maybe by the end of the year we can kind of sneak it in.
Yeah. No, we work with like up and coming brands, and we're trying to like we just try and like impart some of this like knowledge and feelings to them, because I think brands like when they're up and coming, they just think about price, like cost. They don't want to spend money, but it's the whole package.
I mean, even big ones don't want to spend money.
No, big ones don't want to spend money. Talk about travel, like so I'm going to Abu Dhabi. I'm really looking forward to that first time in Abu Dhabi in a few weeks. So looking forward to that trip.
Yeah, let me know how it is. I wish I could meet up there or something, but it's a long route there, and I don't know. I didn't want to go back to Germany again because it was supposed to actually be filmed the last time we were in Germany, but now it's just been a separate trip, and it's because the factory actually has to know which day we're filming in there to prepare for it. And originally the plan was to either go to Abu Dhabi right after Maui on like the 20th, or go to Japan directly from Maui, but then. Now I guess I'm coming back to Victoria for 2 days and then to Germany. So maybe next year.
Man, you're starting to get to 2018 levels, air miles. You'll be catching up.
I think it might have exceeded it by quite a bit. Just because in 2018, I think it was a whole mix of airlines, KLM, and made a bunch of mistakes on the booking aspect of it. But we should do a trip to Japan sometime.
Yeah, we should.
I don't know, maybe December, or maybe in Singapore in December.
I think I'm going to Thailand for Christmas this year. Jake, I'll come and see you for Christmas. Oh no, you'll be back in the UK.
I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably
come visit Victoria next year.
Victoria in Canada.
Yeah. BC.
Come back and check it out.
Okay, yeah. Might take you up on that. I've never been to Canada. I've heard they've got...
we would...
Go.
We would just go to Vancouver and then come to Victoria for a day because there's nothing to do here. But I would just meet you guys in Vancouver.
No, I'm from the small town. I think I could find a lot to do. I'll be in the woods with my toy cars again.
There's a lot of woods out here.
You're going back to the UK, Jake. Any other plans? Or are you?
No, go back to the UK, come back and live in Bangkok and get on with the work.
You've done Bangkok, Justin, have you? Have you done Bangkok?
No, never.
What?
I hadn't even been to Vietnam until this year.
Man.
Oh, really? Where did you go in Vietnam?
It was wherever VinFast took us, so we didn't really even see the city. Yeah. It was like, I think it was Hanoi. It might have been like, I forgot. It was 4 days.
Vietnam is amazing. Highly recommend it. Know some good people.
Actually, we did go to Hanoi. We did go to Hanoi, yeah.
Great. Go to Ho Chi Minh. It's my favorite.
Yeah, I don't know. I did ask VinFast if you guys are going back again. I'd love to redo it. It was a weird trip though. I didn't have any local food. They kept us away from it.
Oh, that's a shame.
It was all at the resort.
No, it's good to get travel again. It feels like it's slowly, like on our side at least, because we're in Asia, right? Things have been pretty locked down for a while. It's just nice to be able to travel again. It's been rough for a long time.
It has been rough for a long time. It's good. It's been a good kind of rough for a long time.
Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah, let's kind of wrap up here. I know you're kind of traveling off the van soon, so
that was last minute.
Yeah.
Decided like yesterday. I don't know. There's like Canucks game and like Post Malone's performing tomorrow, and I don't know. Try to squeeze in a couple meetings and then come back on Monday.
Yeah, it's good to talk, man, and let's do it again. You're the first guest, so hopefully this is the first of many for us. Jake's got a thing like he always does at the end of these podcasts. Like he's always drinking Tim Hortons. Like I don't know it's like a thing for Jake. So like we're trying to get Tim Hortons to sponsor the podcast. Like that's our first sponsor we want to onboard. Do you have the prop, Jake? No, you don't have the
I don't have the prop today, no.
I don't think they don't sponsor many people, right? Tim Hortons.
No, they don't. I was just gonna say like it's like athletes and stuff because it's a very Canadian brand. So yeah, they don't really do any partnerships. I think we might have done something with McDonald's once, but
they have it in China now. There's Tim Hortons in China, in Shanghai.
Really?
Yeah,
that's
and they have it in the UK as well, in
and
London,
Bangkok,
and
you
Thailand.
Can get one you can pick one up in Bangkok. You'll feel right at home.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but it tastes like
it is the first thing I usually have.
Do you have it every day? Do you have Tim's every day?
No, I don't. It's only when I get off the flight. Then I need like a sugary ice cap or something like that, or just like a chicken noodle soup after plane food because it's right next to the domestic terminal. So it's like the classic first stop before taking that flight back to Victoria.
Can we cut this and just edit Justin in saying that he does have Tim Hortons every day, so we can get that sponsorship?
Yeah. What's your drink now? Coffee, Justin? Like you Starbucks? Are you like
just ice latte? I don't know. They opened a Starbucks right next to my house, so that's nice. I find Starbucks like good night coffee. Yeah, it's very sugary and like it gets you completely wired, whereas like the local coffee is not as intense.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna I think I'm trying to decide right now actually what coffee to get because
I think
lunchtime out
Hortons.
Here. It's a little bit too far. It's like 2 blocks away.
Do you not do delivery?
I'm too lazy to walk there. I don't think they do delivery now.
Oh, you see, that's the thing about Asia. You know,
that's the thing about Asia. Yeah, you guys can get anything delivered.
Literally any time of the day.
Yeah.
And when we order Uber Eats here, it takes like 45 minutes.
45 minutes. Oh, Christ. Faster going to the restaurant, right?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I know. You guys out there, I feel like get it in 5 to 10.
Yeah, literally 20 max.
We've got one here called Flash Coffee. It's a new one. It's really fast. It's bad, but it's fast.
From Bangkok. I had it recently.
Yeah.
It's not as good as Tim Hortons. That's all.
It's
not
good, but it's fast. Like they deliver it like really quickly and it's cheap.
Comes in a flash.
Yeah.
Literal flash.
All right, let's wrap it. Thanks for your time. Let's go to sleep.
All right, yeah. Thank you
See
for
you,
having
man.
me.
Cap on cap.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's been amazing.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Bye-bye.